In October 2025, Russia lost more than half of its armored vehicles in a single disastrous assault near a forest outside Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine. The attack, meant to break through Ukrainian defenses, collapsed under a storm of fire from Leopard 2 tanks, Bradley fighting vehicles, and a swarm of FPV drones that turned the woods into a burning maze of steel and smoke. What was supposed to be a rapid advance became a retreat marked by destroyed columns, abandoned equipment, and soldiers surrendering in groups. The battlefield that day exposed a painful truth. Traditional armor tactics no longer work in a sky filled with drones and precision weapons. Modern warfare has shifted from brute force to digital coordination, where seconds of delay can cost entire battalions. This was not just another failed offensive, it was a sign of how quickly the balance of power is changing. Western technology and Ukraine's new tactics are rewriting the rules that once defined ground combat. But what exactly caused this massive breakdown of Russia's assault? Is this the moment Putin's ambitions in Donetsk begin to unravel? And why should the United States be watching this battle closely? The answers lie in how this fight unfolded, minute by minute, drone by drone, from the first Russian push into the trees to the final moments when their troops fled or laid down their arms. Whether this becomes a turning point or just another brutal lesson will depend on what Ukraine does next, and how Moscow chooses to strike back. Russian forces launched a bold mechanized assault into the forests of Zaporizhzhia, but their plan quickly unraveled. In October 2025, columns of Russian armored personnel carriers, APCs, rolled through dense tree lines, carrying infantry tasked with seizing Ukrainian defensive positions. Commanders split their units into smaller groups, hoping to outmaneuver Ukraine's defenses in the rugged terrain. This approach aimed to limit exposure to aerial threats, yet it left Russian troops scattered and vulnerable. Ukrainian forces, alert and prepared, unleashed a swarm of drones to disrupt the advance, exposing flaws in Russia's strategy from the very start. Russian APCs, loaded with soldiers, moved cautiously through the woodline, their heavy treads crunching over uneven ground. Splitting into smaller formations allowed them to weave through the forest, but the thick canopy and narrow paths restricted their ability to coordinate. Soldiers leaped from vehicles, rushing to secure elevated spots that could offer tactical advantages. The forest's natural cover shielded them from direct fire, yet it also blocked clear lines of sight, making it hard to spot threats from above. Russian commanders, aware of Ukraine's drone capabilities, ordered troops to move quietly, minimizing radio chatter to avoid detection. This cautious approach, however, slowed their momentum and spread their forces thin across the battlefield. Ukraine responded swiftly, deploying drones to track and harass the advancing Russians. Small, agile FPV drones buzzed overhead, capturing every move of the scattered APCs and infantry squads. Some drones dropped small explosives, targeting vehicles and forcing soldiers to take cover. Others relayed precise coordinates to Ukrainian commanders, who prepared a counterstrike. The early use of drones disrupted Russia's rhythm, preventing their units from forming a cohesive front. By spotting the split formations early, Ukraine gained a critical edge, turning the forest cover into a trap for the invaders. The Russian strategy of breaking into smaller groups aimed to reduce losses from drone attacks, yet it backfired in critical ways. Smaller units struggled to maintain communication, leaving commanders unable to direct concentrated firepower. Without a unified front, Russian troops couldn't overwhelm Ukrainian defenses as planned. The forest terrain, while offering protection, limited their ability to regroup quickly when drones struck. A single APC, separated from its column near Mala Tokmachka, took multiple drone hits, forcing its crew to abandon it in a panic, as posted on X on October 21, 2025. Ukraine's drone operators exploited this chaos, targeting isolated units and sowing confusion. Statistics highlight the scale of Russia's miscalculation. In this assault, Russian forces lost over 50% of their armored vehicles in a single day, a staggering blow that crippled their advance, according to Forbes on October 24, 2025. The decision to split forces, while intended to counter drones, left Russia without the strength to push through. Ukraine's early drone strikes not only delayed the attack, but also exposed Russian positions, setting the stage for a devastating counteroffensive. What do you think about Russia's split-unit tactic? Could it ever work against Ukraine's drone swarm? Share your thoughts in the comments. In October 2025, as Russian armored columns pushed through the wood line, Ukrainian FPV drones swarmed the battlefield, dropping bombs and tracking every move, forcing infantry and vehicles to stall. These small, agile machines didn't just scout. They struck with precision, delivering explosives that disrupted Russian momentum. By overwhelming the enemy with relentless aerial attacks, Ukraine exposed the limits of Russia's upgraded armor, turning the forest cover into a trap that favored the defenders. Ukrainian FPV drones darted above the dense canopy, their cameras locking onto Russian APCs and infantry squads moving through the underbrush. Equipped with small but powerful explosives, these drones dove toward targets, detonating payloads that shattered vehicle components and scattered soldiers. Others hovered, relaying live coordinates to artillery units waiting to unleash barrages. A single drone strike near Mala-Tokmachka crippled a Russian BTR, leaving its crew scrambling to escape as debris rained down, according to an X post by Toaster on October 21, 2025. This constant pressure kept Russian units pinned, unable to advance as planned, and disrupted their ability to form a cohesive assault line. Russia's so-called mutant tanks, fitted with heavy anti-drone cages, faced a grueling test against Ukraine's aerial onslaught. These reinforced vehicles, designed to withstand FPV strikes, absorbed multiple hits but required an astonishing number of drones to disable. One such tank took dozens of strikes before its armor finally gave way, highlighting the sheer volume of drones Ukraine deployed. The intensity of these attacks overwhelmed Russian countermeasures, as the sheer number of FPVs outpaced the tank's protective designs. Media reported on September 2025 that Ukraine's drone swarms destroyed 50% of Russian vehicles in assaults like this one, proving that even advanced armor struggled against persistent aerial barrages. The effectiveness of Ukraine's drones lay in their ability to exploit the forest's terrain, turning it against the attackers. Wooded areas typically shield ground forces, but drones pierced this cover, spotting targets through gaps in the trees. By delivering real-time data to commanders, drones enabled precise artillery strikes that hit Russian positions before they could regroup. This seamless integration of air and ground operations gave Ukraine a decisive edge, making every Russian move a calculated risk. The forest, once a tactical advantage for Russia, became a vulnerability as drones exposed isolated units, leaving them open to devastating follow-up attacks. Ukrainian FPV operators, monitoring feeds from dozens of drones, directed the next swarm toward a stalled Russian column deeper in the woods, priming for another wave of strikes. Ukraine's ability to deploy dozens of drones per target overwhelmed Russia's numerical advantage, showing that technology can outmatch traditional forces. The cost disparity is staggering. A single FPV drone, built for under $500, can neutralize million-dollar assets in seconds. These cheap, agile machines have become a game-changer, allowing Ukraine to counter Russia's larger army with speed and accuracy. For global audiences, this raises questions about future military investments, as drones prove their worth against even the toughest armor. Statistics paint a stark picture of Ukraine's aerial advantage. Russia has lost over half its vehicles in Ukraine battlefield since the start of the war, largely due to drone strikes. Media reported that drones dominate Ukraine's battlefield, with swarms targeting everything from tanks to infantry. Are drones the future of warfare, redefining how battles are fought? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us if you think drones will shape the next generation of military strategy. The Leopard 2 entered the battle with confidence, moving through the edge of the forest like a hunter closing in on its prey. Its crew had a clear task: stop the Russian armored push before it could reach the trenches. The tank's maneuver across the wood line was not random. It followed a calculated path designed to cover advancing infantry and block Russian escape routes. The first shots came fast and accurate. Rounds from the Leopard's 120mm gun tore through a Russian armored personnel carrier and scattered infantry who tried to take cover among the trees. Each burst of fire echoed through the woods, showing how well-trained crews and precision optics could dominate the narrow battlefield. The Leopard 2 proved why it has long been considered one of the best tanks in the world. It could move quickly, strike precisely, and survive hits that would have crippled older vehicles. Its stabilized gun and modern sensors gave it an edge in both vision and reaction time. While Russian crews fought blind in the smoke, the Leopard's thermal sights cut through the haze, allowing the gunner to track heat signatures even at long range. Each successful hit slowed the Russian advance, allowing infantry and Bradley fighting vehicles to close in and clear the area. But the rhythm of victory changed when a new danger appeared from above. A small Russian drone spotted the tank as it began to withdraw toward cover. Seconds later, an FPV drone carrying an explosive charge dived straight into the engine deck. The blast knocked the Leopard off balance, sending it rolling into a nearby ditch. Thick black smoke rose as the crew struggled to regain control, but the machine could no longer move. It was a hard reminder that in this war, even the most advanced armor could be undone by a weapon costing less than an advanced vehicle. The loss did not erase the Leopard's success, yet it exposed a growing problem that every army now faces. Drone warfare has changed the balance between cost and protection. A single FPV can threaten a tank worth millions, forcing commanders to think less about firepower and more about survivability under constant surveillance. The battle near Zaporizhzhia showed that protection is no longer measured only in armor thickness, but also in how well a vehicle can hide, jam, or deceive. Leopard crews now rely on electronic shields, smoke screens, and mobile decoy systems, but the sky remains crowded with threats. A Russian kamikaze drone dived first and sparked a fire, then a second struck the running gear. Its mission accomplished anyway. The Leopard helped crack the line, poured fire on key positions, and still brought its soldier to where they needed. Even after 2 drone hits, the hull stayed together instead of bursting apart the way many Russian vehicles do. Even so, the Leopard 2's performance remained decisive. Reports from the field noted that Ukrainian units equipped with the German tank destroyed roughly half of the Russian vehicles engaged in the sector before losing mobility. Its presence on the battlefield carried both practical and psychological weight, boosting Ukrainian morale and shaking Russian confidence. In this forest near Zaporizhzhia, its gunfire and resilience helped turn a Russian assault into a retreat, and proved that the king of the battlefield still holds its crown, even under a sky full of drones. Ukraine's counterattack began with precision and speed, combining Bradley fighting vehicles, infantry, and drones into a single coordinated push. The Bradleys opened fire first, their Bushmaster cannons spitting controlled bursts across the open ground. Each round punched through Russian APCS that had survived earlier strikes, breaking the line of armor that tried to regroup inside the forest edge. The vehicles stayed in constant motion, firing from long distance, using short bursts to suppress Russian gunners while the infantry closed in. The attack was not chaotic. It followed a clear rhythm where every shot and movement was part of a larger plan. Ukrainian infantry dismounted from their APCs under cover of smoke and metal. They moved in compact groups, staying low as they advanced through narrow trenches and fallen trees. Commanders gave direct orders over radio, short, sharp, and confident. The phrase, "breakthrough," repeated across the net as squads prepared to storm the Russian positions. Grenades were tossed into dugouts to clear the way before anyone entered, ensuring no defender was left waiting in the shadows. Each section of trench was treated like its own battle, taken piece by piece, with soldiers checking corners and firing only when certain of their targets. This methodical approach reflected the discipline Ukraine has built over years of adapting to drone warfare and precision combat. Bradleys and infantry no longer acted as separate units. They worked as extensions of each other. When the infantry called for help, the Bradleys shifted their turrets instantly to provide suppressive fire, using the high velocity of the Bushmaster to neutralize enemy positions without exposing themselves. From the sky, drones fed real-time images of enemy movements to ground commanders, allowing them to adjust angles and timing with near-perfect accuracy. The entire battle unfolded like a sequence of coordinated decisions rather than random exchanges of fire. Russian forces struggled to answer this rhythm. Under constant observation and fire, their communication collapsed, leaving scattered units that could not regroup or mount a counterattack. What began as an organized defense turned into a desperate retreat through the same wood line they had used to advance. Some vehicles burned while others were abandoned, their crews fleeing toward open ground. In a short window of hours, Russia's numerical advantage disappeared under Ukraine's layered assault. By the end of the engagement, reports from the sector indicated that Russia had lost a major share of its deployed strength near Mala-Tokmachka. The success of the counterattack came from the combination of three key elements: mobility, timing, and precision. Bradleys offered mobile firepower capable of striking targets beyond visual range. Infantry provided adaptability, clearing trenches and securing captured ground. Drones turned the air above the battlefield into a shared map where no movement went unseen. Together, they created a chain of actions that kept pressure constant and prevented the enemy from regaining initiative. This was the essence of modern combined warfare. Many systems acting as one mind. By the time the fighting quieted, the wood line that once sheltered Russian armor was littered with wrecks and shell craters. Ukraine had not only retaken the position but reshaped the battlefield into a lesson on coordination and tempo. The Bradley, often overshadowed by the Leopard 2, proved its worth as the weapon that turned defense into offense and restored momentum. It showed that in modern war, precision and teamwork matter more than size or armor, and that sometimes the quieter machine can change the entire outcome of a battle. Russia's line finally broke under relentless pressure. Artillery crews fired their last shells, and drones circled overhead in a desperate attempt to hold the front. But nothing could stop the momentum that Ukraine had built. The sound of mortars faded behind the crack of Ukrainian guns as armored vehicles rolled forward through the smoke. Russian soldiers who had dug deep into the trenches began to run, some waving white cloths, while others fled across open fields that had once been their approach route. The forest, once filled with the roar of engines and explosions, turned silent except for the hum of drones scanning the ruins. Ukrainian tanks charged through the tree line with confidence. The crews knew the ground well and moved as if the forest itself was guiding them. One tank pushed straight into the last Russian position, forcing the remaining troops to scatter. These armored vehicles did not just chase the retreating enemy. They cleared the path for engineers and infantry to take control of the area. Within hours, Ukraine had secured the main trench, re-established communication lines, and positioned defensive guns in a circular pattern around the captured zone. This 360-degree formation allowed them to resist any sudden counterattack and turn a temporary gain into a lasting stronghold. The quick consolidation of the victory showed how far Ukraine's command and control systems have evolved. Field reports indicated that small units operated independently, yet remained perfectly connected through digital maps and drone feeds. Every tank, infantry squad, and UAV acted as part of a single network, reacting instantly to any movement spotted in the trees. This synchronization made it impossible for the Russians to regroup or exploit gaps in the line. Once the assault began to collapse, their structure fell apart completely, revealing just how fragile their coordination had become. Russia's failure was not only a matter of firepower, it was a failure of planning. Intercepted communications had shown that Ukrainian drones disrupted logistics by targeting ammunition trucks and command vehicles long before the assault reached the front. Without steady supplies or a clear chain of command, Russian battalions were left to improvise under constant aerial surveillance. By the time the main battle unfolded, they were already running short of fuel and coordination. No amount of courage could overcome a system that was blind and disconnected from its own support. The result was a force trapped between the will to fight and the inability to act. When the last shots ended, the battlefield told its own story. Destroyed vehicles lay scattered across the fields, some burned beyond recognition. Abandoned trenches were filled with debris, spent shells, and personal gear left behind in haste. Ukrainian soldiers moved carefully through the area, checking for mines and repairing communication lines, while drones hovered to ensure no counterattack was forming. By dusk, the area that had been contested in the morning was fully under Ukrainian control. Flags were raised, positions fortified, and supplies brought in for the night. Victory had been achieved not only through firepower, but through precision, timing, and discipline. The collapse of the Russian assault near Zaporizhzhia marked a turning point in the campaign. It exposed how outdated command structures cannot survive in a war driven by drones, sensors, and real-time coordination. Ukraine's ability to merge technology with battlefield instinct allowed it to win not just ground but momentum. The question now is how Russia will respond. Will it attempt to rebuild with new tactics, or will the next assault fall into the same trap of confusion and delay? That uncertainty will decide whether this victory remains a moment of triumph or the beginning of an even larger shift in the war's direction. The battle showcased Ukraine's lethal edge, as Leopard 2 tanks blasted Russian armor, Bradley vehicles struck from afar, and FPV drones swarmed the battlefield, shredding columns of APCS and forcing Russian soldiers to surrender in droves. From the failed Russian push through the forest to Ukraine's relentless counterattack, this clash proved that cutting-edge technology and smart tactics can outmatch a larger force. Russian mutant tanks crumbled under drone barrages, while Ukraine's seamless coordination locked in their victory, securing trenches and setting up a 360-degree defense. Beyond the battlefield, this loss raises big questions about Putin's grip on Donetsk, as mounting casualties strain Russia's resolve. For global audiences, Ukraine's win could sway lawmakers, even under Trump, to boost aid and keep the momentum alive. Will Russia double down with upgraded turtle tanks, or will Ukraine's drones continue to rule the skies? The future of modern combat is unfolding in Zaporizhzhia, and the next moves could change everything. What do you think Russia and Ukraine will do next? Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this post, share it with friends, and subscribe to Military Force for more updates on the battles shaping our world.